What's up, everybody? How are you? This is impromptu. Just decided to do this tonight, just based on the probably 40 different conversations I've had with you guys in the last, God bless, probably the last week or so. So I figured, hey, why don't I just jump on here, make a quick video, help answer kind of the basic, generalized questions that everyone keeps asking me. So let's just, in the words of Phil DeFranco, let's just jump into it. So if you're watching this, I'm going to assume you've always wanted to write a book, or you're writing a book right now, or you really want to write a book for whatever reason that it may be. It may be something along the lines of you want to write a book so you can become an expert in such industry. You want to write a book because you want it to be an extension of you. You want to write a book because you want it to be your new business card. You want to write a book because you want to be a public speaker. You want to write a book. It doesn't really matter really what reason you want to write it for, even if it's just you just want to be the first person in your family to write a book. Regardless, pretty much almost all of it is going to be the same, unless you're writing a fiction book, because I have no flipping idea how to do that. I'm sure that would be way more time consuming because you have to figure out the narrative and all that fun stuff. But really what I'm going to talk about is nonfiction, specifically how to write maybe like a self-help business type book, because it's something I have done. And it's something I want to help all of you do as well for free. I want to help you. I just want to give you my advice, personal experience on how I've done it and how you can too. So step one, let's talk about myths. Let's see here. I've interviewed close to 60 people in the last year on my show, Embrace the Chase. And as I was interviewing those people, many of them authors already, I, off camera, wanted to ask them real questions. So I would literally, I don't know, blunt sometimes, just say, hey, quick question, how long did it take you to write X book? How long did it take you to come up with this idea? And the funny thing was, when I was not live with these people, when I wasn't recording them, the responses I got were not expected. People would literally say, well, I didn't write my book in 6 months. I wrote my book in a month, or I wrote my book in 2.5 weeks, or I wrote my book in this and that and that. And the common theme I started noticing throughout all of these interviews was most entrepreneurs, authors, speakers, etc. in the nonfiction kind of self-help business space wrote their books, per se, in under a month. So I started thinking to myself, you know what? I want to freaking write a book too. Let's just do this. I want to write a book. So, and I have one of these sitting over here. I remember telling myself, okay, I'm doing interviews. This will be fun. What I'm going to do is write a book like this and basically collaborate all the interviews I ever did. Well, as I started finding my voice, I realized that that really wasn't what I wanted to do. So I wasn't going to write a book like this and compile all my interviews. I wanted to write something else. Long story short, come January, I sat down one day and I said, you know what? This is the year I'm going to get more accomplished than anything. I'm going to become a professional public speaker, which, spoiler alert, I am already. Speaking of Ty Lopez, Tim Story, and a bunch of incredible people in June, and as of right now, potentially Grant Cardone in September. It's going to be wild, but that's irrelevant. And then also, I wanted to become an author and actually publish my book. So I sat down, and I'm just going to give you guys the honest truth of my story. I sat down and created an outline one day. It took me about 2 hours. So I sat down and basically created that, I'm going to need a foreword. And I grabbed several different books, some of my favorite books, to kind of do this outline. So I figured, I'm going to do a foreword. Then I'm going to probably tell my story, kind of talk about just my life, how I got into entrepreneurship, where I am today, and everything that I've learned in the 26 years I've been on Earth. So wrote all of kind of a couple ideas that I want to get across, and then I said, what are the 3 ideas? And this is just from all the papers I've written in school. Wanted to make it simple, and a lot of the books I've read typically have a specific number of pieces of advice. So I said, I'm going to do 3 sections, because that's easy, and I'll do a section on teaching people how to find their strengths, and focus on their strengths and not their weaknesses, break it down into 3 subcategories. The next category is going to be teaching people how to find a mentor, break that down into 3 categories. And the last one is how to make money off your strengths, break that down into 3 categories and do a conclusion. I was like, okay, well, I have the book outline done. So now all I need to do is do the research, because I was treating this like a paper to make this simple for all of you. So I sat down at home probably about 2 or 3 days later, and this one took the most, I wouldn't say the most amount of time, the second most amount of time allotted, probably about 5 hours, because I literally did all the research I needed for my book, because I had done over close to 60 interviews at that point in time, and I went through and found the people that had backgrounds associated with each of my 9 subtopics and my 3 main topics. And I compiled a list of about 20 different citations of stories these people had told, things that I had learned from them that I wanted to get across in this book. So got all that stuff done, created a works site, bibliography, and then a works cited page, reference page, and all that fun stuff. And then I sat down about 3 or 4 days later, and I kid you not, my wife can attest to this, from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m., I wrote my book. I was like, let's do this. Let's just write this. There's no reason, if I've heard all these people say they've written a book in under 30 days, no reason I can't just do that now. So I was exhausted, wrote all of it. 7 hours later, done. Okay, keep in mind, when you write a book in 7 hours, it's not amazing, but I did it. So I finished all of that and took a break. Spent about 3 days maybe just decompressing because I got all of it done. Then I spent that weekend going through and reading it and cleaning things up, adding bridge sentences, conclusion paragraphs, all that stuff from when it didn't make sense when I was tired, and kind of clean it up a little bit. Next is the key here, publishing. So I reached out to a lot of people in my network and spoke on the phone with 5 different publishers. So for those of you right now who are wondering, okay, what do I do? Should I get published? Should I get self-published? Blah, blah, blah. There's pros and cons to each. And a lot of people have proposed to me, why don't you just self-publish? Because the perks for self-publishing are you own 100% of the rights, and you can control the entire editing process and creative process. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I looked into CreateSpace, looked into all this stuff, and I just figured it was more of a hassle because I'm the type of person, again, I just wrote a book on strengths. Why focus on my weaknesses and not my strengths? So I'm like, you know what, this is a lot of freaking work. It's probably going to cost close to $2,000, maybe $2,500 once it's all said and done, dealing with copywriting, getting everything registered with all the different entities, obviously making sure that my book doesn't have spelling errors and having people proofread it. Just all of that didn't make sense to me. So I started interviewing different publishers just to kind of get their perspective on things. And several different publishers told me things like, we keep 15% of the profits from every book, or we do this, we do that, we expect this. One publisher wanted $20,000 up front. I didn't even have to ask my wife that one. I knew that answer was probably going to be no, because I'm pretty sure you can find someone else. And she's right, because I love her. And I found somebody else. Stumbled across a gentleman, and I don't want to say stumbled because I was referred to him. And I can introduce any of you to him as long as we have a conversation before, because I want to keep that relationship pure. But I came across the publisher, who's my current publisher, who kind of sat down with me and explained his business model, his passion, why he got into publishing, and has been doing it for, I believe it's about 10 years now. He himself has 3 published books that are all bestsellers, and he's sold over 350,000 books combined. And just in the last 3 months has made $49,000 on his newest book. And I'm like, okay, I love this. Here's what really excited me. Because he got into the publishing game to actually help people become published authors, no matter what the niche, especially entrepreneurs, he was going to give me 100% rights to my book, which basically means that he does all the editing, him and his team. He makes sure the book gets published. He has a printing area where he can get the books printed cheap, like cheap. And I get 100% rights to my book, which means I can sell it and make 100% profit from now until freaking forever. I'm like, this is a no-brainer. And the price he was charging was a no-brainer charge. Literally, no-brainer. Very comparable to self-publishing. So that's the route that I went. Now, here's the part that people like to ask. You're like, well, what's next? What happens here? I submitted my manuscript over to him. He read it, he digested it, and he gave me feedback. So at that point, I had 20,000 words. And he basically said, hey, listen, Jordan, here's my advice that I have for you. A truly successful kind of category for business books and self-help, et cetera, is around 140 to maybe 180 pages. Because it's just thick enough that the consumer, when they purchase it, they feel they've gotten a lot of value for their money. but it's not too thick that it's overwhelming, and it's not too thin that they feel like they got ripped off. I'm like, okay, what's the word count for that? 30,000 words is the sweet spot. So for those of you that are wondering, well, how do I write my book? I did it in Microsoft Word. 30,000 words is what I shot for. Now, the editing process, once I did all that and I resubmitted my manuscript to them, in editing, they have not necessarily a ghostwriter, but the editor themselves goes through and doesn't, I want to say fluff, because that's not really the right word, but they go through and make sure that all of your sentences between chapters make sense, like you don't end a paragraph without explaining why you're starting the next chapter. So they can go through and kind of clean it up, and that may add another 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 words, give or take. So the editing process from there can take probably about 4 weeks. And the reason why is these people are professional editors. They take time to read your book thoroughly a couple times through. They clean up all the spelling errors. Make sure, here's my favorite part, make sure you're in compliance with things like copyright laws, etc., that you're not going to do something stupid and get yourself sued. And then they send it back to you and ask you for revisions and check it over. Once you've read it over and you feel comfortable, you submit it back to them. They then send it to layout, where they basically create the size of the book, etc., and make sure everything's good for if you go to put it in an ebook or if you go to do it really in any other space like that. They submit that to layout, and then with these guys, they asked me what I wanted for my cover, my back cover design, submitted all that to them. At this point in time, guys, I'm about 2 months into the process, and it should be going to print here in the next 2 weeks. So all in all, about 3 months for the whole process, and a fraction of the cost, and I get to own 100% of it. On top of that, this specific publisher, they go above and beyond to help make sure that you market your book, get you on podcasts, et cetera, to help really promote it. And he can even help you with ClickFunnels and setting up an actual free plus shipping offer, et cetera, et cetera. They've just been absolutely wonderful. So, long story short, advice for any of you who've been messaging me and hitting me up about how do I write a book, what do I do, where do I start, feel free to shoot me a message or whatnot, right on my wall. It doesn't really matter. I'll reach out to you. We can have a one-on-one conversation. I can help you with just your thought process of getting outlines done, et cetera, or if there are any of you that would like an introduction to my friend who is my publisher, I'd be more than happy to do that. However, just for my reputation with him, I would like to at least jump on a phone call with you first, just to kind of see, where your head's at, or where's your book at, where are you about to write, et cetera, because I just want to make sure I'm sending him, good people, and I know all of you are. So if any of you have any questions, feel free to shoot them down below in the messages, et cetera, or just shoot me a message directly. But I'm just here to help. I love you guys. The only reason why I want to do this is because I know how freaking frustrating and terrifying it was and stressful to figure out how to do this. And now that I know, I just want to help people. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know. But I love all of you and excited for all of you that want to become authors. And it's going to be great. And I'll let all of you know once my book is officially published and ready to go and you can buy it. But appreciate all of you, and I'll see you guys later.